You are live.
Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees of March 22nd. And I'd like to start with the, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Arlene, could you do roll call, please?
Sure. John Aldred.
Here.
Hang on, muting my TV. Okay. Francis Bach.
Here.
Ben Dollinger. Rick Drew.
Here.
Tim Garneau.
Here.
Jim Grimes.
Present.
Mike Martinson.
Here.
Susan McGraw-Keeber.
Here.
And Bill Taylor. Okay, I'll check back for Bill and Ben. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So just so you know, we were going to have Dr. Goldblatt present his annual report tonight. He will be doing that on April 12th. And so we'll move on to public comment. Start with Sarah Davidson, Georgia Pond, Friends of Georgia Pond, the aquatic weed harvester you want to talk about?
Thank you, Francis, and it's good to see everybody. It's the time of year to ask the trustees to renew or to do a new resolution to authorize the aquatic weed harvester. And for some of the newer members, we have started using an aquatic weed harvester in Georgia Pond back in 2015 with the support of the trustees, the town, and the DEC. And we were operating it for 3 years under a pilot project with a special DEC permit called a license to collect. After 3 years, we found the results to be quite striking and positive, with dramatic increases in water quality, particularly lower blue-green algae levels and higher dissolved oxygen levels. So we were asked to apply for a tidal wetlands permit from the DEC and a permit from Natural Resources at the town of East Hampton. We've been working and waiting on those permits, and we hope that by this summer we will receive those necessary permits. And in anticipation of that, a resolution authorizing this work in Georgia Pond is necessary. And I want to thank the board so much for their support and interest in this project. So I believe you have a draft resolution that Arlene circulated. Any questions?
I haven't seen a draft resolution.
I haven't seen it either.
Arlene, when did you send that out?
I thought I sent it out. We do have a copy we can read. It's exactly the same as the last 2 years. And I will send it out right now if anyone wants to look on their phone.
Thank you, Arlene.
I do have a copy of it.
In a nutshell, the resolution calls for the continuation of the use of the harvester to be allowed only 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, for a total of 7.5 hours per day, June through September. It also allows for the use of a motorized skiff, which would be operated by Dr. Bradley Peterson's lab at Stony Brook, which is the monitoring part of the harvester work. Dr. Peterson would use the skiff on the pond in the month of June and in September, pre and post harvest, sampling for submerged aquatic vegetation, fish, crabs, and other invertebrates.
Yeah, this is basically what we've done in the past, slightly modified. I would support it.
Hey, Sarah, it's Rick. Is June early enough in the season to facilitate the goals that you've set for this year? I know we've gotten out of the blocks a little late the past couple of years.
It's June is when this typically had been started in the past.
Yeah, June should be fine, Rick.
Great, thank you.
What have you heard from DEC and Natural Resources? Sarah?
Yeah, the DEC is, requested a lot of extra information, which we've sent them, and they're, very close, I think, to rendering their decision. And of course, the town is the lead agency, and there's some, it's been at Natural Resources for a year and a half, and we're waiting.
Sarah, for the purposes of the people who are watching this evening, would you just briefly describe to us what you have before to the board, the benefits of the harvester and what it is, why it's important for the pond?
And, also the track record of the good it's done when we did it in the past.
Right. Well, the harvester is, we view it as an immediate short-term management tool for the situation at the pond, which, as everybody knows, is an impaired water body, and it's impaired by excessive nitrogen and phosphorus entering the pond via septic systems and fertilizer, and a little bit from atmospheric deposition. And this excess in these plant growth nutrients is what creates the algal blooms that are so problematic. Algal blooms, both blue-green or cyanobacteria, but also macroalgae and other macrophytes, aquatic plants that grow in the pond. And, we have evidence and documentation, photographs of some years where the macrophytes are so thick that you can't even sail a boat through the pond. But the long-term solution to this problem is a watershed-wide approach to the pond, which we've talked about and we've been working on with various partners, and that's upgrading septic systems within at least the 2-year travel time. And now the county's really advocating for the 10-year travel time. That is the time it takes groundwater to reach the pond from a certain property. The surface water runoff projects, both up at the end of Cove Hollow Pipe and at the rest stop, and educating landowners about fertilizer use, timing, amounts, and organic, and also watering regimes that are better for the pond. So it's a watershed-wide approach. The harvester's more immediate, short-term. It harvests plant material, which is taken to the dump and composted, and samples of that plant material are analyzed for nitrogen and phosphorus content. And as a result of removing that nitrogen and phosphorus, which is really a bioextraction process with a mechanical harvester, we haven't had a large pond-wide blue-green algae blooms since we started using the harvester. We've had small localized ones, but we haven't had a pond-wide blue-green bloom since 2015. Also, Gobler Lab has found statistically significant better dissolved oxygen levels in years that the harvester's been used. And we view it as an efficient and valuable management tool for the pond.
This is exactly the same thing. Everybody's jumping through hoops to grow kelp in order to remove nitrogen from water bodies. And this is killing 2 or 3 or 4 problems at once. It's doing exactly the same thing of removing the nitrogen and removing invasive plants. And I don't understand any opposition to it.
All right. Hey, do we have a motion on the floor to approve the new the upgraded resolution?
I'll make a motion, Jim.
Well, let me,
Bill made a resolution.
I think you should read the resolution.
yeah, allow me to read the resolution, guys. All right.
Yeah. It's in this.
Okay, whereas there continues to be serious water quality impairment that are a threat to human environmental health at Georgia Pond and continued growth of blue-green algae and macrophyte blooms, which are promoted by nitrogen and phosphorus found on the pond. And whereas there is a need for continued monitoring of the blue crab and fish populations in Georgia Pond, and whereas a permit has been applied for by the Friends of Georgia Pond Foundation, Incorporated, to the New York State DEC and the town of East Hampton to harvest the macrophytes in Georgia Pond, in which the trustees have been named as property owners. And whereas in the past, the trustees have agreed to permit the use of an aquatic weed harvester to operate in Georgia Pond for 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, for a total of 7.5 hours per day from the months of June 2020 to September 2020. And this should be 2021, right?
Well,
Okay, we have done this in the past. I'm sorry. And to operate a motorized skiff boat to collect, monitoring, and survey data periodically during the months of June 2020 and September 2020. And now therefore be it resolved that the Friends of Georgia Pond Foundation Incorporated shall be permitted to continue use of the aquatic weed harvester to harvest macrophytes and a skiff boat to survey blue crab and fish populations for 7.5 hours a day, Monday through Friday, for approximately 12 weeks from June 1st, 2021 to September 30th, 2021.
All right, I think we have a motion. I can second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hey, before we leave Georgia Pond, I just would like to point out, I believe Sarah distributed the latest iteration of the Georgia Management Plan. Has anybody had a chance to look at that yet?
No.
Okay, maybe we could all take a moment, look at it, come up with any questions. I don't know whether we'll be able to talk about this at the next meeting, but certainly by the following, I'd like to be able to have a discussion about this because we are going to have to adopt this thing.
yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Jim. Yeah, I would encourage you all to take a look at it. And there are extensive appendices that go with that management plan that were not sent to you as part of the document, but Arlene has them on the office computers at your office. So if you want to dive in deeper and look at the appendices, which are actually quite interesting, that's where they are.
All right. Well, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Next, we have Kevin Mcallister of Defend H2O.
Thank you, Francis. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
I wanted to pick up on, I guess, addressing the board back in May, if you recall, on Napeague. At the time, the board was considering a beach dewatering project that was proposed and I think subsequently permitted. I had shared, I know with Susan and I believe the board, an assessment that was done on dewatering systems at the time throughout the country. This is going back probably 20 years. A bit of a preamble. Obviously, the board knows my work as baykeeper and Defend, largely with the water quality work. In my, I guess, earlier in my career, in my time in South Florida, I worked for Palm Beach County for roughly 12 years, and a lot of that was in shoreline management. My role is to do or perform the biology around various projects, everything from beach nourishment, sand bypassing, offshore reefs, and ultimately my master's is in coastal zone management. So I wanted to share that with you because I certainly am an expert on dunes. This was ultimately my graduate work, and thus I really am I guess, an advocate for natural shorelines. With the deep water project moving forward, and obviously with the board, and I know there's a lot to work out, but ultimately the mitigation package that provides great opportunity for this board, and I made reference to that back in May. I looked at the aerial photos of Napeague going back to the 60s, I guess 64, with Suffolk County's planning GIS. Which is, pretty telltale. Obviously, the board, I'm sure, is familiar with the changes over time. But as I see it, ultimately, as that inlet to the north ultimately closed and you had a greater jet on the southern side, that's where we started really seeing the changes to the shoreline and erosion problems and subsequently structures coming in. So just food for thought with the board going forward. I know there's interest, and you made reference to it, of trying to improve water quality in Napeague. Ultimately, that Hick Island is just enormous high quality beach sand there. It's a very dynamic system. Over the years, I certainly have been a proponent for putting high quality sand in the intertidal zone in order to build beaches. With the interest to try to prevent structures from coming in. So my thought is, as the board considers manipulations for Napeague, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I would suggest you really start to think something monumental for water quality improvement, and to bring all that material into the Napeague community. Where you're preventing ultimately the erosion and more manifestation of the structures.
Hey, Kevin, just to make you aware, we've been in discussions about this for almost 2 years now, and now that it looks like we are going to have some funding available to us, we're working with the state of New York, the county, and our town government, as well as some of the private property owner groups over there, to dredge that east or north inlet, as some people describe it, take that sand shoal that's within Napeague Harbor out, connect it to the pre-existing channel that runs around Napeague Harbor, and probably convey that sand to the really much needed areas, which is really west of the Lazy Point community at this point. They got a good charge of sand when they dredged that west inlet a few years ago. But as you saw with that property that was proposing the PEMS, that whole area is so sand starved, it's ridiculous. And, this is a way of everybody's interests being served. And a consequence to that is to reestablish that shorebird rookery on Hicks Island and get that productive again.
Jim, I'm somewhat familiar with what you're describing. I knew it was in the works. I guess I'm lending my support for something ambitious there to really move substantial amount of sand. I would recommend it be in conjunction with, I'll say, cleaning up the shoreline. There's a number of structures that have been installed, I believe, ad hoc, that might be working at cross purposes to stabilizing that shoreline. So consideration of actually moving some of the structures out of there. And then lastly, again, goes back to my strong feelings about stabilizing natural shorelines, to actually stabilize and build in, a dune in that area for further stabilization. So I think it's great you're proceeding with this. I'm just trying to bolster that and say it makes really good sense. So I'm glad to see it.
Hey, Kevin, it's Rick. I think if we dredge all the way back to the existing boat ramp, which may be in the cards, we're going to have a fairly voluminous amount of sand, as you know. And I think, as Jim indicated, when we get some engineering work going here in the near future, we'll have some volumes, and maybe we could consult with you when we have more information about the volumes that we have to work with.
Sure. This really great opportunity. I mean, you can really, I think, bring in a great deal of benefit to the system, and you have the ability to do it. On FIMP, I just really wanted to bring your attention to some information gaps that I discovered. I've gotten into the plan pretty good. With respect to the Montauk, the downtown Montauk component, the sand source is area A through D, A, B, C, D. The most easternmost is really off of the park there, Hither Hills, I believe, is the easternmost source. And then we go further to the west for the A portion. But what I gathered from reading the appendices and the studies on this, the sediment quality analysis has not been done. This appears to be pending. So, I mean, the presumption often to Peak, you've got high quality sand, but we don't know that with certainty until they actually get in there and do the vibrocores and do the analysis. So I think that's an important gap on that particular area. And then I guess lastly, as we addressed deep water and the dredging from the cable as well as landing, there's a great deal of concern about the disturbance. And, let me just put this into some context. And if the volumes are correct, and I know the town had talked about roughly 600,000 cubic yards for the downtown segment as part of FIMP, that equates to a 50-acre hole at 7 feet deep. This is 4 times the cable disturbance from the jet plow, over the course of the 35 miles. And, I think there's real reason for concern, particularly if there's reoccurring dredging events. I will tell you my, I'll say literature review, reading some of the research coming out of the Carolinas that, have been pumping beaches for 30, 40 years. They're seeing real impacts to the fisheries. And, it shouldn't be dismissed. And I know with respect to FIMP, I'll say they gloss over, these tremendous holes in the sea floor. But, I think this board in their concern about fisheries and stewards, at least should be wary and understand that we are, again, talking about 50-acre, 7-foot hole out there. And, that's a problem. I would go as far, and I know I've put it out there publicly, and I guess keep addressing the issue, as well as I can through the platforms I can. But I still feel strongly that, over the course of time here, there has to be a concerted effort to restore the front row of downtown Montauk, a major dune restoration project in there, minus the geotextile bags in conjunction with pumping, but to ultimately put some semblance of a beach dune system back in place for long-term interests. And we're not talking about that yet. I hope we get there. And I guess I bring this information forward so the board's aware of it. And, because we're all a community having these conversations, and, we should know really what the deal is. So thank you for the time, Francis. I appreciate it. And thanks for the board consideration to my comments.
Right. Well, thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.
Thank you for your
Kevin.
concerns,
Good to
Kevin.
see you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Kevin.
Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I value your words.
Thank you, Mike. I think that was you. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Kevin.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. So I have here Tyler Armstrong. I'm not sure he.
He's
Yeah.
here.
Hi, Francis. I'm here.
Yes. Hey, Tyler. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you? How's
Good.
everyone?
Great.
Oh, well.
Good.
Hi, Tyler.
Good. Hey, before we start, I just want to say, as far as Georgia Pond goes, when I was on the board here, we started that aquatic weed harvesting program, and from what I saw, it was really helpful, and I just really hope that everyone in town comes to an agreement on resuming that project. So, just want to quickly state my support for continuing that, and thanks to you guys for, giving them the at least your approval to keep doing that. I hope it goes through.
Thanks, Tyler.
Anyway, tonight, I'm here representing John McGinn at 275 Thermal Harbor Road, sorry, regarding the dock that he's proposing on his property. We've discussed this a few times so far. Maddie couldn't be here tonight. She's taking a much deserved vacation. And so it's just me tonight, and you got to meet John last time we met. And we've proposed, a number of mitigation, ways to mitigate any kind of impacts this might have. And one of those, of course, was that he has purchased the property to the north of him, which belonged to Gregory Blatt, and they finally closed on the property on Friday. So I've sent the deed around now, which has his, shows his ownership of that property. I think I know Ben saw it. He got back to me, and I included Jim and John Aldred and on that email as well. So he has closed on the property, and he agrees to covenant to restrict the building of a dock on that property in perpetuity.
Well, I mean, how did we leave this the last time, John? I think we had some discussions about whether we'd approve a dock with a covenant in there. That certainly would be a benefit to the community, but I don't think we ever voted on it, did we?
I think the last we left it was going to go back to the committee for discussion. And we did meet several weeks ago and discussed it. And I think we kind of have a split decision. So I expressed my reservations about new docks, and especially in this spot. This is an area that's seeded by the shellfish hatchery with oysters. It's also just today an area that's been requested for powering by some baymen. I feel there's the ability there to have a boat either in the mooring area nearby, or the using a rope and pulley mooring in front of the house, which we typically grant to waterfront homeowners. And I don't think there's been a dock. I'm pretty sure there hasn't been a dock approved, and I'm pretty sure there hasn't even been a dock proposed in 3 Mile Harbor in about 30 or 35 years. The trustees put a prohibition on docks south of Wilkesboro Highway in 1987, and I, just out of curiosity, went back and read the 1987 minutes. And in that year, there were 18 discussions of docks, 12 of which were 3 Mile Harbor. Some of these were south of the line. And the key dock application at the time that created a lot of controversy was called the Beanstalk Edelman dock. I believe it went to court, went back for an appeal. They were both denied. The trustees prevailed. That Beanstalk Edelman dock was actually north of the closure line. It was after it was denied a second time and the appeal was lost. It came back in slightly modified form for another permit approval in 1989, and that was also denied. Another one of my concerns is the possible proliferation of docks with the approval of this dock.
Well, the only comment I'm going to make about that is this dock comes with what I describe as a very big carrot. As far as the proliferation of docks, that only occurs if those docks are permanent. As you described earlier, John, there's a lot of those areas, docks are specifically prohibited. This is not an area where the docks are prohibited. And to me, a fair exchange right now is the fact that you have an applicant that is willing to put a covenant on a piece of property that has a real and measurable financial impact on the value of that property from the day we accept a covenant like that To me, I think it's a carrot that's very much worth our consideration. I hear your arguments related to the histories here, but this is a dynamic board. Our role here is to make decisions that are not myopic, that are far-reaching and long-term. And when the opportunities present themselves, I think it behooves us to take advantage and utilize those things.
Yeah, I was at the meeting where we discussed this quite thoroughly. And, given the reason we were waiting was because the closing of the adjoining property had occurred. And, with a covenant, I would support this. I've been through all the history. The trustee board, when they were concentrating completely on docks, decided that this was an area that they were not going to prohibit them. So that's my feeling.
Yeah, I think that means something.
I
Sorry,
may be
go ahead.
incorrect about this, but Tyler, and because we've had several meetings about it, and I see both sides here, John's as well as Jim and Bill's, because I too have concerns that this would open the door for other docks. That doesn't mean that I don't think that the covenant is not worthy of consideration. I do. But my question is this property also your client, was there mention somewhere along the line of a new septic system being installed or no? For the property that they live in currently?
I believe that the property, I haven't worked on this aspect of his property, but he did do numerous improvements to the property, not the one he just bought, of course, but the one he already owned,
Right.
which I do believe involved already upgrading the septic system. Yes.
Okay.
I'm
All
not
right.
sure,
Double check with that, but
Susan, I'm not sure on the property that was recently purchased. I am not positive, but I do believe the previous owner may have upgraded that septic system. It does not have an IA system in it, but I believe that system was upgraded as part of a renovation on that house several years ago.
Okay. So it's not.
Hey, John.
Okay.
John, how active is the shellfish seeding that's going on there? I know there's some areas that I have participated in seeding projects on, and others are documented in the shellfish hatchery maps, but some areas are more actively seeded than others. Is this an annual seeding area, or is this more of an infrequent location?
I haven't seen the seeding maps for 2020, but before that, this area in general was seeded every year since 2010 with oysters.
I've looked at the past seeding maps for the past few years, and yeah, either this area was included. I think in 2018 there were 2 spots like north and south of this area that were seeded, and then in another one of the years, the whole strip up and down that coast was seeded with just oysters, of course. But I want to point out the other mitigation aspect that he's offering here is to participate in the residential oyster grow-out program, which would presumably increase the oyster population in this area of the harbor.
Yeah,
So he would grow oysters
John,
off of the dock, and the dock
John,
would itself become something that would increase the oyster population.
John,
itself.
did you consult with Barley as well? I think Barley at some point had spoken to this issue, or am I mistaken?
Well, I think that request to Barley came from the applicants.
We did speak with Barley, yeah, and he was very happy that John wanted to participate in the oyster grow-out program. So he was supportive from his stance as a hatchery manager.
That was my recollection as well.
We forwarded an email from him to the board that
Yes.
was very positive.
Right.
I'd just like a little background on the program that Tyler's talking about. It's a program in conjunction with the oyster gardening program that allows someone with a dock to grow oysters off their dock. And I'm not sure exactly you might know better than I do, Susan, what the give back portion of the the crop that's being grown, the give back to the public domain is. It's a percentage of the crop. It's not.
Right. I don't know about having bags on the docks, but I do know that in my own crate, we are responsible for, we can take 50% and we also have to return 50%.
Yes, I'm under the impression that it's 50% too, John and Susan.
Okay.
So how many hundred bushels is he going to be growing, Tyler?
I don't know how many, probably not that many.
Well, I don't know, Tyler. This, honestly, the pitch in the oyster gardening thing is to me a little like renting your house when you don't have a swimming pool in the hopes of getting a deposit on the rental to do your swimming pool. I think we should weigh this thing on
You can't count your
on
oysters
the
before they hatch,
actual
but
on the actual merits and not on whether if we have a dock, we'll
Yes.
throw some bags of oysters off of it.
No, I know it's not a huge thing. I mean, he originally was willing to, help fund the hatchery's seeding efforts if that was an option, and Barley recommended the oyster grow program instead.
It's a lovely incentive.
I know it's not the major thing though here, of course.
Hey, Tyler,
I think the major thing here is, is the concern about the proliferation of docks, and I very much understand that, and I know John does as well. And I've said this before, but I mean, he can only control what he does with his own property. We really can't control what's going to happen with other people's properties going forward. But I mean, the fact that virtually no docks have been even proposed in Thurmell Harbor in the past, I forget what John said for how long he went back and saw that there weren't any dock proposals recently. It doesn't seem like people are already clamoring to put in docks here. It is a very involved.
What is the
process,
square
obviously.
footage of this footprint for the walkway and pier and the dock? What do you
The
see?
dock,
Square footage.
To get out to reach the 3.5 feet depth, it's 80 feet in total. The catwalk is, I have to look at the drawings again. I'm sorry. I believe the catwalk is 20 or 30 feet. So only less than half of it is actually fixed, and the rest, of course, is. Wait, sorry. Let me look at the numbers here. I don't want to.
That was my question, Tyler. It's part of it's removed in the winter time. Is that correct?
Yes. The floating dock would come in, and the aluminum ramp would be folded back over the catwalk.
Right.
So
I
80 feet is the maximum the town allows. So it's not any longer than the town allows. The DEC doesn't have limits on that, but the DEC has already approved this as well. But let me bring up the plans.
So Tyler, my point is that, we are possibly going to lose some bottom land, and it is an area that's seeded. I appreciate Barley's recommendation, and I think if your applicant wants to do that, it's great. But I do think there should be increased public output for shellfish if this is to be considered, because we are diminishing the take area. So it seems like you would want to increase abundance in the other areas. So I would want to see that as part of a proposal to move forward.
Okay, that's a great idea. I'm sure, Mr. McGinn would like to do something like that. Do you have more of a in-depth proposal for how that would work?
No, but I think we could pretty easily come up with a format where, whether it's based on dollars or production per piece of shellfish, if we could, leave it subject to a reasonable plan. I don't think it has to be enormous or onerous, but, a modest contribution to what's being put out would be helpful.
Do some more intensive shellfish on the portion of the property that he's agreed not to put a dock on. Most of the shellfish that's going in that area seems to be oysters, and they get harvested fairly quickly. You could perhaps provide some more seed or something.
Can I chime in here?
Sterilize piece of property.
Yeah, Mike, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm a bayman. I work the waters. I don't work that particular spot, never have. But, the oysters are still going to get into the water. Everything the town produces is still going to get into the water somewhere. So what oysters are not planted there will still be planted elsewhere at no additional cost to any of us as taxpayers or baymen. Losing that small amount of space as a harvester, unless it's really critical, like one of the big spots that these guys are working, once that dock is out of there, they'll clean it up in a week anyway. One guy will clean it up in a week come December after the floating dock is gone. I appreciate any contribution to producing and putting more shellfish into any body of water in anywhere. But I also think, perhaps a move toward the value of the shellfish, not just for harvest, but for, like the kelp and the grasses we were just talking about in Georgia. There's a move for, kelp in 3 Mile Harbor along, and barley's involved with that very strongly. Perhaps some, incentive to barley with his kelp operation and converting that into fertilizer, as opposed to, adopting oysters or something like that. Just any kind of contribution to the water quality is really what we're after here. We're going to be influencing the quality of the waterfront by adding another dock. There is an expense to the taxpayers here. So I wanted to say, thank you for including oysters in the proposal for the future moving forward, but also consider kelp, supporting barley in everything that he does with helping 3 Mile Harbor.
That's great, Mike. I like that. I really feel strongly about adding kelp to the aquaculture mix out here. I think it's important to have the plants and animals kind of balanced out. So
just wanted to throw it out there. Thanks, Tyler.
As that kelp program develops, I'd love to see. Yeah, I know John's willing to make contributions to the the quality of the ecosystem and the health of the water itself. So if kelp's part of that, and it's possible for him to contribute to that, I'm sure he'd be willing to do that. He really does want to be a good steward of the land here and make sure that he's he's contributing to the town more than he's detracting from anything. Can I just share my screen real quickly, and I'll just show you the diagram of the dock again in case no one has it in front of them, because I just want to point out, really what kind of bottom line is actually getting taken up here. It would be just really, in my understanding, can you see this?
Yep.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, let me see. So you have these pilings out here on the end. This is where the floating dock is. Those are just 3. They're not going to be paired. Those are just kind of dolphins that are out there just to hold the floating dock in place during the season that it's being used. That's 24-foot floating dock. Then 16 foot of ramp here would also come out seasonally. So, in the non-summer months, this or the winter months, I guess, the ramp would be folded up, the dock would be out of here, and you'd have 3 pilings left in the water. Then the catwalk itself is 40 feet of the 80 feet. So it's only half of it's actually fixed. And these pilings are paired. As you can see, the mean low water is about here. So a lot of the time, these pilings aren't even in the water. And obviously oysters aren't going to, really proliferate up where they're going to be, on dry land some of the time. So really there's basically these 6 pilings here and then the 3 out there. So the space those pilings take up is taking up some bottom land. And that's pretty much it, because the dock comes out seasonally, the ramp goes out seasonally, and the catwalk, the decking itself is through flow decking. So the light gets through, so it doesn't shade out the bottom land. So, I feel okay presenting this application because there's so many aspects that the engineer and the applicant have added to mitigate, any impacts to the ecosystem here.
Tyler, are there 6 or 8 pilings on the fixed walkway?
There are 8, but I was just pointing out that these 2 here are above the mean low water line. So some of the time they are on what would be beach or dry land.
Thank you.
I have a question about navigational issues. Maybe I could direct it to Rick, because you know that body of water pretty well. I have some concern about an 80-foot dock coming out into those waters, especially during summer months.
Yeah, Tim, that part of the harbor is very shallow.
Yeah, that's I go through there and I think an 80-foot dock. I'm looking at the map right now. I'm like, how am I getting around this thing?
Yeah, but the channel is further out into the harbor. So to Bill's point, it is a flat there, and that's probably why it's been selected as a shell fishing site. And Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you mentioned at a prior meeting that the dock is not sticking out any further than the neighboring dock that has been there.
Right,
for a
just
while.
south
Is
of
that
there.
correct?
I think there's stuff to the north and to the south that stick out further than it.
Yeah,
Right,
I'd just like to point out that the town code calls for a maximum dock length of 80 feet. So it can't be any longer than this. This is the maximum it can be. And I suspect that language in the town code was introduced probably after a lot of the trustee discussions in the 80s, because some of the docks that were proposed that were denied back then were much longer than 80 feet.
I do think you're right, John. The ones that are longer are pre-existing, and as we know, there haven't been docks, added to Three Mile Harbor in a long time. So I'm pretty sure every dock in Three Mile Harbor is pre-existing that regulation.
So Tyler, to my original question, are we looking at a dock that's longer or shorter or equal to the neighboring docks?
It is shorter than the one to the south, and it also doesn't come out as far as the ones at Shagwong do.
How long are the ones at Shagwong?
I'm looking at the GIS now to refresh my memory there. Let's see. I can share that as well.
And obviously, how long ago were they installed? Do you know, Tyler?
Maybe somebody on the
Which
harbor
one?
committee
Which
would know.
ones are you talking about? The dock
Or
to
maybe
the
Rick.
south?
Oh, that's East Hampton Point.
Yeah, at East Hampton Point here, these dock structures come out, I believe, more than 80 feet.
Basin
Let me see.
structure.
The dock. Yeah. Hey guys, the dock to the south. It's been there as long as I knew Bud Levinson, so it's been there. I think about 30 or 40 years in one form or another. This entire property was in one ownership at one time, and it was all bulkheaded. Oh God, I don't know, a ways back, because the bulkheading's been done at least twice that I know of.
So this structure here at East Hampton Point is about 130 feet out, and the channel is more out here. So I know 80 feet does sound like a lot, and at first when I was looking at this, I was like, oh, that sounds like a lot. When I look at the GIS, you have this big wide channel to come down here. That's 130 feet right here.
Mm-hmm.
So John's 80-foot dock being right here would be about this far out, about that, something like that. And then you have, more docks down here too. So this structure here is.
Are there any docks south of McGinn that come out the way his would?
Yeah.
As well?
Well,
I don't see anything.
it's the one immediately south.
And where is
Yeah.
that one, Tyler?
It's hard to see on the GIS here. Let me put it.
Yeah, because you know what it is? The floating portion's been taken out in that photo. I believe.
Yeah, they're all wintertime photos. So the floating portion's out here, but this is it here.
Yeah, I can see that filing.
267 3 Mile Harbor. Okay.
Yeah, that's it was Bud Levinson's property, right? And now it's what's his name?
Mortar.
Yeah, it's Charlie Mortar. So that comes out about 130 feet as well.
I'd just like to comment on some of the part of your dock is going to be permanently in the water. Pilings are going to be permanently in the water. There's a variety of different dock scenarios around the harbor. Some of them, in fact, we've just got a request from a dock owner on the other side whose permit calls for him to remove the pilings every season. And he's requesting that we allow them to remain in, arguing that there may be more disturbance to the bottom by removing them every season than leaving them there.
Yeah.
And, there's a variety of fixed docks and floating docks and sort of short docks, along the lines of the the Georgica stairway to floating platform that's not really a dock. And I don't know, I think, you know, regardless of how the board sees this dock, I think it's important that we maybe, you know, try to standardize what we're doing here, so it's not like making it up as we go along. So I just thought that might be worthy of thought by the board.
Tyler, when do you want to get started on this project?
You know, he's looking to start whenever he can, really. He's been working on this for about 5 years, really. They've had the property for, I think, since 2012 or so. And I know that our office, before I worked there, had already been, when Billy Hayjack was there, he had begun working on this project.
And what other permits are still yet to be obtained? Is everything else in place, or are you waiting on anything else?
We have to go through the town still. So, you know, we'll have to go to the ZBA for an NRSP.
So if we needed to polish this up a little bit, would waiting one meeting hurt you?
Like I said, we do have to go through the town still, so that will definitely take some time still. I know we're kind of trying to finish discussions with the trustees first, so that we can really understand your concerns and understand, you know, what it is you want to see from this project going forward before we go to the town.
Well,
So hopefully we can have another approval in hand when we
well,
go to the ZBA.
I think what's going to happen here, guys, is given the way the ZBA is now you know, the lens that they're looking at these applications, which are either entirely or predominantly in the trustee sphere of jurisdiction, that they aren't going to move on this until we move on. So listen, whatever, if perhaps we do, we do agree to permit this, I'm sure we're going to want it conditional on the language of the covenant being accepted and any other conditions that we're looking to put in here.
Hey, trustees, may I offer my 2 cents here? Chris Carrillo speaking.
Please.
So, trustee, as I'm listening to this discussion and I'm sort of taking the temperature of the trustee group, it seems to me there is that concern about the proliferation of docks. And to kind of build on what John has mentioned and now what Jim is saying, I think it would be a prudent path here for the trustees to really be descriptive and specific on the language on this one, if in fact there is an approval. Not that we would, go ahead and vote on this one verbally, but I think it would be important that we narrowly tailor it to this particular project and come back with a resolution that has those details in it, as Jim just mentioned, so that going forward, the trustees don't ever get the feeling that they're opening the floodgates. So I do think it's important that we take a little more time on this one and again, get the language nailed down that narrowly tails her to this specific project, so that we all feel pretty good that we're not opening it up to potential floodgate of applications, that we can kind of hang our hat on the fact that this is a specific one and it's going to be a case-by-case basis going forward based on the details. Does that make sense to everybody?
Hey,
Very good idea, Chris. Yes, I like
given
that.
that the applicant does want to get going, what is your availability to help on something like this? And do you think one meeting interval would give us enough time to put together a more polished resolution?
Yeah, I don't see why we can't put this together within 2 weeks. I don't think that's an issue at all. I'm here. I'm always available.
Hey guys, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. We haven't voted on this thing.
Well,
no, but we could put together a resolution that
we don't have
be voted in or voted out.
All right. As long as
I'd just like to comment on the mitigation aspect of it. I'm a little uncomfortable with what might be described as almost a quid pro quo. I applaud John McGinn. I think he's, a straight shooter, and I think he has the best interest of the harbor and community in mind, but I'd be pretty uncomfortable to say, well, you know, growing oysters off the dock or, you know, seeding oysters out front will get you a permit. It's going to be a permanent dock for John McGinn and anybody who comes after him. And I'm not sure how long we're going to be able to enforce oyster seeding
Well, John, you know, we do vegetated buffers, you know, around other water bodies to mitigate. So I see this as, you know, potentially another form of mitigation through seeding or kelp, which is a form of vegetation. So I think there's an opportunity to at least have that discussion. And I'd like to use the next 2 weeks to vet out your concerns and see if we can do something that's appropriate along the lines of mitigation with dock permits. Because, you know, I think we are probably going to see a few more. You know, we've seen a couple were built without permits, which is the worst case scenario. So I do also applaud the applicant for their transparency and forthright approach. But it is a tricky discussion to do this correctly. So I don't disagree with you, but I would like to try to have the discussion over the next 2 weeks.
I know he's willing to offer, you know, whatever mitigation we can come up with. And, you know, I'd hate for that to be seen as some kind of, you know, getting this for that sort of situation here, because I know with a lot of things in town, you know, mitigation is an important factor in you know, making a project be best for the community and, you know, and all the stakeholders. So I know he's obviously into growing oysters himself too, you know, and I know the oyster growing, like Jim said, it's not something we can, you know, guarantee because we don't actually have a dock yet. So it's kind of a catch-22 there, but
No,
shellfish is a concern there. You know, I really think that there's not much bottom land getting taken up by the nine or so pilings that are going to be underwater.
yeah, you're talking
Adding
about,
more oysters to the system, hopefully, in my mind, can actually add more to the shellfishing ecosystem than it would take away.
yeah, the way it's constructed at time, you're talking about what, 300 square feet? That's accessible to harvest, all, you know, all winter. No, I don't like the idea of requiring something for something, but mitigation does go into our, you know, decision-making, like conservation easements and stuff like that with subdivision. Yeah. And we also own the property in the harbor outright, fee simple. We could say yes to one person and no to another person, based solely on whether we think it's a good project or not. I'm sort of impressed by, you know, the efforts this gentleman is making to do everything well. You know?
I think there's an opportunity to validate our position here without in any way eroding our jurisdictional enforceability on any other applications.
I think this is a good opportunity for the board to start to, you know, really solidify the policies on docks and thermal harbor. So I think from my
that might require us to make a little longer look at this one, Tyler. I'm sorry.
That's
I
fine.
think we need a couple weeks to polish this up, and I'd like to make a motion to table this for now and let the committee continue working and maybe provide an update to the other board members before.
I will
collect
second that.
information from.
Second. I agree.
Well,
We need time, we need more time among ourselves, I think, to, because
That's
it's been
completely fair.
several weeks now. But again, I just want to say, Tyler, that this has been very well presented and a lot of work and effort and cooperation has gone into this. So I think it's, you know, for us to revisit this as a committee, board members together, I think that we need that time. So I definitely, you know, thank you and Mr. McGinn and Ms. Davis for their efforts to work with the trustees.
Yes, thank all of you for, you know, working with this,
so
with
we
this
have a
project.
motion to, go ahead, Tyler.
Rick made the motion, I second it.
Sorry, I was just
So
going
we
to
have
say
a
that
motion
I would really like to,
Go ahead.
with all the
Go ahead.
work that's gone into this, yeah, definitely see this come out the best it can be and not rush it. So I know John wants to get going, but I know also that the most important thing here is to have something that everyone feels good about in the end. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we will address this at the next meeting and hopefully come to a resolution.
Okay, great. I'll let everyone know. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Okay,
Tyler.
thanks,
Good to
Tyler.
see
Have a nice night. I'll stick around and listen to some of the meeting. Sounds like there's a lot of good stuff on the agenda.
Okay,
Have a
thanks.
good night.
You as well.
All right, next up is Joel Halsey. He has an application to legalize the replacement of a boat basement and walkway at 19 Isle White Road, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-37-2-6. Joel?
Good evening, board trustees. Sorry. Mr. Fresco back in 2018 hired a company to get his permits in order to rebuild his boat basin, essentially in place and in kind. The walkway did get a little bit larger. If you notice, I submitted the survey. I think it was 1976. Let me see.
It's 77.
77. It showed that was the first survey that I could find that actually showed the boat basin and a certificate of occupancy from the town. So that the walkway was a 3-foot walkway back in 77. And now it's a 5-foot walkway. It's a little bit safer for people to walk around. 3 foot's a little narrow. So he hired this company back in 2018, Shore Solutions, and I did submit the invoice to the trustees file that shows the permit that he was supposed to be getting, the New York PEC permit, the trustees permit, and the town of East Hampton NRSP. The company followed through on the DEC permit, but they never followed through on any other permit, and essentially told Mr. Fresco that permits were in place, we can rebuild this boat basin, and they did the work. Mr. Fresco went to upgrade his sanitary system, which he required a DEC permit to do, not a town permit. And at the same time, though, he decided he wanted to build a pool, which put him in his natural resource special permit jurisdiction to build a pool. And that's when it was discovered that by the town that the boat basin had been rebuilt. And therefore, we went before the zoning board of appeals for the NRSP for the pool and the boat basin. We have those permits in place, but we are now wasn't going to require anything with regards to the boat basin prior to going to the trustees. And now I'm before the trustees to try to legalize the rebuilding of the boat basin. And that's where I am tonight.
Okay. Hey, question for you, Joel.
Yes.
Shore Contracting that did the original work, do they hold an East Hampton Town contractor's license?
I could not tell you that for sure. I do not know.
Okay. Were they cited as such if they did not hold the town of East Hampton contractor license?
I believe that nobody even knew that the work had gotten done except for the property owner and Shore Solutions.
Okay.
Hey, Joel, it's Rick.
For a building permit.
Joel?
Yes.
Hey, it's Rick. How you doing?
Good.
Good. I've had a couple of conversations with Joel, and I visited the property, took pictures of the bulkhead, which were sent around to the committee members. I think Chris has gotten a lot of the information as well. You know, it's a nicely rebuilt bulkhead / basin dock. It's in a very isolated area, so it probably was in place without anyone knowing it for quite a long period of time. And it has a concrete bulkhead further to the east of the basin. Unfortunately, a lot of the shoreline has been compromised and hardened, which probably wouldn't happen today. But this was done a long time ago. It did get a CO. It was properly surveyed, and it was rebuilt well with, I think, more updated materials. The ZBA has reviewed this, and they have approved it in their recent deliberations. There is to be a vegetation replanting zone that hasn't been completed yet. So I think the conditions of the ZBA should be considered in our deliberations. The basin functions as a dock. I would like to see it, as a committee member on Hog Creek, I would like to see this in our dock registry and there be an annual dock fee. And, I feel this is, really well documented. It's pretty far along, that this is something we should seriously consider tonight to, accept the application and maybe try to get it closed out and get it on our registry for an annual dock fee. And I'd open it up for further discussion or questions, as I may be the only member who's been over there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate, there is an approximately 3,000 square foot of revegetation that's going to be required along the shoreline there. I think it runs along the 4-foot contour. It goes just on the landward side of the wood walkway, probably about 5 feet. There's going to be a 4-foot non-structural path through the revegetation to the wood walkway. And then it encompasses all the way to the south of the boat basin.
Okay. Hey, Joel, is there a plan on that?
The revegetation?
Yes.
I would like one as soon as I can get one.
Okay. Because, our policy on this has been, hey, anytime somebody's asking to do something, the vegetated buffers are as valuable to this board as it is to the ZBA. And, what we've done on a lot of applications, before we'll entertain the application, even though this falls outside of our jurisdiction, it does have a direct impact on our resources here. I think probably the bigger question on this is maybe not related specifically to this application, but the bigger issue of when one of these applications comes in post construction, okay, you're legitimizing somebody for not going through the process, not following the rules. And currently, we do not have any sort of a fee structure or that under those circumstances. But however this thing does get disposed of, I think it would be important for our board to, in the future, have a discussion on this so that future projects that fall under this heading will be addressed perhaps a little differently than an application that truly is an application.
Yes, and it's truly, the gentleman, have you ever met Emmanuel Fresco, which, Rick, I think you met him or you met his wife, I'm not sure.
I met his wife on the property. Yeah, she was very nice.
Very nice. And Emmanuel's a very nice guy, but he's one of those gentlemen who kind of, he tried to do it the right way. He thought everything was getting done the right way. And he just, he got, I would say, I don't want to say he got taken, but, they got him a permit. They showed him a permit and he thought everything was good.
I mean, this even predates the applicant, but, the rebuild was with this applicant, but the basin and the impact to the shoreline has been there for quite some time. And I think it's important that we document it as a lesson to what, perhaps we should not be doing in the future with regard to shoreline management. But Jim, your point is well taken. We really need to address that. You and I have already been to another property with a similar situation. So, we're seeing it happen and we need to address it.
Rick, can I just ask, my understanding of, your description is that this has never been permitted or it's never been charged a dock fee. Is that right?
To the best of my knowledge, John, that is correct. I think the location is such that it's been off the radar for such a long time that, no one, it's very low profile, there's no real view to it from any of the directions. So I think it's just been an outlier for a very, very long time.
So there's no record in the trustee office of this thing, or this property ever having constructed this thing ever?
Not that I'm aware of, but we can double check with, the secretarial team, but I don't believe so.
Well, if they rebuilt it, my assumption is ZBA wouldn't have approved this.
Oh, there's no way this would have gotten approved today, but there is a.
Yeah, no, but I have to believe that there was pre-existing permitted structures here.
Well, the CO from 77 has the basin drawn on the survey.
Okay, so then listen, if it's described in a CO going back to the 70s, I don't think that's really something for discussion here.
I don't think we can get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it. And what are you gonna do, rip everything out and redo the whole
No.
shoreline? I don't think that's realistic. That's really the only other option we have, and I don't think that's fair to the current applicant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the issue of people coming in looking for forgiveness instead of permission is a bigger issue, but it seems to be happening more and more.
Well, it's a bigger issue, but we can't create a law today
No, this,
to apply to somebody who's before us today.
if this was done in the 70s, it's got to be a statute of limitations on it or something.
Yeah, but you know, if this way goes anywhere, my recommendation would be that we vote on permitting this, okay, conditional on the receipt of a revegetation plan that's been approved by Natural Resources, and conditional on on some document from this homeowner that they're going to pay the dock fees on this property. And
Jim, is there any reason we really have to vote on it until we have those in hand?
No, we don't. No,
Yeah,
I
so
wouldn't.
we don't have to do it conditionally.
In fact, I wouldn't recommend we do it unless we had
No.
those conditions.
So we want an application for the existing structure then?
We have
Yeah,
the application and all the other documents, just the two that Jim mentioned, Bill, are still missing. And Joel, what do you think about getting those together? Is that something you could do in a couple weeks?
Yeah, it's easily enough. I can get. I'm hoping to get the re-veg. He wants to start working on the pool, and that's the one thing that's holding up the building permit for the pool is the revegetation plan. Once I get that in hand, which I'm hoping is going to be soon, I'll submit that as soon as I can, along with the paperwork that I would need to sign up for the dock registry. I guess is what it would be, and we'll start paying that fee. It's a yearly basis, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think we can get you in touch with the office and get you the appropriate paperwork for the dock.
Okay, I'll reach out to the office tomorrow.
That's great. So let's table this one until the next meeting. And Joel, if you can hustle it up, maybe we can close this out in a couple weeks.
Awesome, thanks, guys.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but I just wonder if, we should research this in our files and determine if it's somewhere in existence there in case there are, dock fees that are in arrears. And this thing actually existed in our files and just dropped off for some reason.
Yeah, so let's take a look in the next 2 weeks, John. So let's do that. Part of our due diligence.
Good idea.
All right, so we'll revisit you at the next meeting, Joel, if you'd like to join us.
I will. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you, Joel.
It's a good suggestion, John.
This is a fairly new owner though, isn't it?
Fairly recent, not from the 70s. Definitely a new owner.
Yeah.
New owner.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that they could be responsible for any fees that are in arrears.
I'm looking at it, clean it up and move forward, but let's check it out.
Maybe for the time he's owned the property.
Yes. All right.
Beware.
So we don't seem to have anything under new business. Old business, powering of soft clamps. Is that John?
John.
I guess sounds like it's gonna be me. So Danny Lester has been requesting a powering season, and he hasn't talked to me. My understanding is that Barley gave him some maps a couple of weeks ago with seeding locations for clams and oysters, scallops for the last 10 years. And Danny marked up the maps where he would like to see powering take place. And again, not having talked to him, but hearing this sort of secondhand from a couple of people, my understanding is they're looking for, in effect, an open-ended powering season in any place that isn't marked on the maps as a seating location.
John, do you
John,
have those maps, John? John, do you have the maps to share with everyone that we could all take a look at this?
They were mailed out today by Arlene. I
Arlene
printed
sent
them
them out
out myself.
That they were emailed?
They were emailed by Arlene.
Yeah,
It's-
Rick, I think everybody's got them.
All right.
Acronic Harbor. It includes Hog Creek, Lake Montauk. Let's see.
It's all the harbor. It's all the harbor.
Peague Harbor, and Northwest Creek. And lastly, it includes 3 Mile Harbor again. It looks like, from what I can ascertain, quite a large area in each one of these bodies of water that he is requesting to do the powering of soft clams. Am I right, John?
That's what it looked like to me. Yeah.
Sorry?
That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I was quite amazed at how much. It's almost all of the body of water open.
Well, the reality is, I think we all know there aren't soft clams found in a lot of these areas that are shown.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is kind of a wish list of if there's soft clams there, we'd like to have the opportunity to harvest them. But let's have some discussion about this. When Dan approached me a while ago, John, you and I did speak, and you said one of your concerns was, we're talking about adding areas. There's a lot of areas that Barley uses for his seeding. We certainly don't want areas open to powering that are being seeded. And I think this is a product of the discussions that Dan has had with Barley. But let's have some discussion. What are our feelings about this?
I remember from last year, it was not that successful, John. I believe that those who received the permits to go out and do this did not really find anything in the area.
Well, I don't know about anything. I mean, we opened up 2 harbors for July and 2 other harbors for August, and we gave out special permits to, I believe, 6 or 8 people.
Right, about a handful or so.
And I didn't really get any feedback directly. I think Arlene got a little bit of feedback. Yeah, it's my understanding there wasn't really a lot of activity. But I really haven't heard anything directly.
Hey,
That was
John.
I'm sorry. That was my recollection as well, that it was not that successful.
John, the areas that are marked out encompass not just the shoreline, but the entire creek or basin or cove that's been circled. In observing some folks powering years ago in Sag Harbor, they weren't only collecting or gathering soft clams, they were getting a fair amount of hard clams as well, because they were near shore. So it might be helpful to get some information about what is being taken. Is it a mix of soft clams and hard clams? Is it just soft clams? And are we talking about powering bigger areas than just the shoreline for steamers?
Well, as Jim said, I think this is kind of a wish list. It's just like, let us go where we think we're going to find clams, and leave it open. Now, my understanding and in my experience, they are targeting soft clams. Not to say that they don't get a bycatch of something else. Razor clams are also, if they're going to hit razor clams, they'll be there because they're pretty valuable, and they do power for razor clams. But I don't think there's a lot of razor clams found in East Hampton's harbors. They probably do kick up hard clams, and I'm sure they take them if they do kick them up. But they are targeting soft clams, so you're not just going to go through an area and if they don't find soft clams, they're probably going to move on. That'd be my
John, how does this impact the oysters? What was Barley's assessment of this? how will it impact the oysters that are there, or the any scallops?
Well,
That
they'll
planted?
bury them. It'll bury the seed. I mean, that's why the maps are there. That's why the seeding areas are off limits. in
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah. Hey guys, the only concern I have is, hey, listen, is that like I'm just going to take Napeague Harbor as an example. At the north end at Napeague Harbor, you've got pretty significant area that barley seeds with both clams and oysters, and sandwiched between that, we're going to try and power the soft clams. I think to a degree that that's where things probably get a little dicey. I think there's an opportunity for more collateral damage than good there.
Well, that, Jim, that area is an area we allowed 2 years ago, or well, not last year, but the time before. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That flat. The understanding was barley seeds off the flats.
Yep.
He wanted to look on the flat itself, where he doesn't see.
Yeah, my understanding is there were no soft clams there.
That's true.
So, I'm kind of surprised this is showing up. It was it was the same situation at the south end in Napeague Harbor.
I think it's there because I think they have found clams before, years back. That was an area that did set up. So I think he's marking up areas that he knows have produced them in the past.
All right.
I don't know.
What time frame would we be considering for this year? Is it the same as last time? Would it be in July and then
We're
again
not
in August?
considering anything at the moment. The code.
Well, if we were to consider this again.
The code makes this a winter fishery. And quite often in the past, the powering season has been opened up in season. So it's been a winter fishery. We stretched it into the closed season both times we did it, last year and the year before. More so last year, which we allowed it in July and August.
Right.
Because that was when their market was strongest. But it's a closed season. That's when they spawn. That's it's not an R month. All these factors. So.
Okay. So when did when do they spawn?
Spawn in June, May, June.
All right.
When the water starts to warm.
Okay, so it's a little like the other clams.
Yeah.
So
Can we take a little time to mull over these maps and the seasonal aspects of this? Do we have a couple weeks, John, or are we getting pressure to make a decision tonight?
Well, I just saw them myself.
Yeah, I'd like a little time to think about it if it's okay with everyone else.
Yeah, I'd say we table this 2 weeks. We plan on voting on it.
I would say though that this has to be done by resolution. This is a code, requirement here. This stuff's in the code. We have to open the season. We have the ability to do that by the town code. So we have to go by those rules. If we did pass a resolution next meeting, it would have to be noticed in the paper and posted on the clerk's bulletin board. I'm not sure what that time frame is, but that.
Listen, I think, John, I think
a month from now.
Yeah. Okay, John, I think we're stuck with that. There's nothing we're going to do to.
No, but my point is, we should know what we're talking about next meeting,
Yep.
not just start kicking it around again. I don't know what to think about this. Either we allow this, the options I see are we go with the request, which is leave it open year round, anywhere there aren't clams seeded, anywhere that barley didn't mark up the maps, or we restrict it we restrict the areas, we restrict the time frames somehow. And
That's what we did last year, isn't it, John?
Could you please
Yes,
send
sure.
around the last resolution you did for this last year so we have a reference document to refer to along with the maps, please?
Sure, I'll do that.
John, isn't your second suggestion what we did last year? We restricted the times, we restricted the areas. Doesn't that
That's the
seems to
way-
me to make sense.
That's the way it's always been done, but it's been done, the different restrictions, different years.
Okay, but you offered two different ways. That one would be open and they can do whatever they want to do, or there are restrictions, and it seems to.
Well, I don't think we should open this unrestricted in perpetuity.
Right, I think there have to be restrictions and guidelines and areas that are open.
There's got to be an opportunity to evaluate this in a year.
Well, I think that's almost a given. I don't think this
Okay.
would be forever.
All right.
But the point is, there would be really, no restrictions in terms of where you can go, in effect for the rest of the year. And
Hey, John, last time we talked about this, I thought one of the takeaways was that we were going to try to do a little bit of an evaluation as to how last year's format worked. And I don't know if we've ever really gotten back there to look at that, in terms of those specific restrictions. So maybe these 2 weeks offer us that opportunity to evaluate the plan against what actually happened.
I know the first year we were offered and we accepted an evaluation beforehand. They went out and looked around at areas they suspected might be promising, and then came back to us and say, we think these areas are promising. We opened them up. In most cases, the evidence they found was not soft clams, it was worms, which show similarly to soft clams on the surface. So,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we approach this the last 2 times as an exploratory event?
Yes, I recall.
Okay, so they've explored several areas that were not fruitful at this point. So why would we even consider those areas again? Why not just choose a couple of the ones that they haven't looked at yet and let them take a look?
well, I guess, one answer to that is common clams go. Just because they didn't find anything 2 years ago doesn't mean it didn't set up by now. And I think that's probably the thinking of the request, is that we don't know where these things are. And if you designate spots for us and they're not there, we don't have the opportunity to go to another spot. I'm not advocating this, I'm just trying to explain what I think the rationale is of the request.
I also think there's some good information to be gotten here for the hatchery in terms of abundance by areas. I don't know, how much resource Barley has for surveying, but if we are finding areas that are void of shellfish, is there a reason? Is it bad bottom type or water quality, or is there an opportunity to seed, new areas which would, bring back abundance? So I'd be interested in some feedback on this, and I thought we were going to get some of that, but if it's possible, it'd be nice to see.
Yeah, I would like to see a report of their catch. I mean, if they're getting anything, they're selling it. I'd like to see the receipts so that at least we have an idea of what they're seeing.
Well, I did get some feedback after the first year, and there wasn't much found, but there was some found on the west side of 3 Mile Harbor, north of Ann's Creek, which was.
But what's some? A bushel, or
I didn't
hundreds
get
of
a
bushels?
quantity. I didn't get a quantity.
Yeah, well, I think that's important. If we're going to be tearing up the bottom like this, it better be for, a real reason.
To collect data. is what we're looking at, right, Francis?
That's how
We
I
should have some
feel.
data so that we know from year to year what the results are.
I mean, we all know that soft clams have become rare. And to just keep digging and digging with these, the power of digging, seems to me it's a lot of damage for naught.
Well, I'm not trying to defend anything here, Francis, but
I know you're not.
they start digging and don't find anything, they're not just going to keep digging. I mean, they'll dig with his clams,
No, but if you're doing it year after year after year, eventually that damage becomes permanent.
Yeah, let's
Well,
get some data.
That's the great debate. That's the great debate about powering.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer.
I think this requires more discussion.
Yes.
And then to our next meeting, or as you said, someone asked how soon do they want to start doing this? And John, your answer was?
Tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, at least I think we should table this until our next meeting and have a discussion, a more
Well,
in-depth discussion.
I think we should table this to our next meeting, but guys, give this some serious consideration. Let's talk among ourselves and be prepared to vote one way or the other here.
Yes.
Absolutely. They deserve an answer.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to table it and until next meeting, April 12th.
All right.
Anybody want to second
All in
that?
favor?
Second.
Thank you,
All in
Tim.
favor?
All right.
Anyone opposed? All right. Next, we have a request to grow sugar kelp in Northwest Creek.
Yeah, well, this is just a very preliminary FYI to the board. We got a request from a fellow named Chuck Wade, runs a dive boat out of Montauk. He used to own property at the head of Northwest Creek, sold it to the town for preservation. And he's interested in growing sugar kelp in the creek for the purpose of, remediating the water quality there. And I talked to him, and he seems sincere. He seems interested. He's got, basically a summer employment, intense summer employment, and he's got time in the winter. That's the season. And he'd like to grow it in the lower part of the creek to, as I say, help out with the water quality there.
Now, where in the creek, John, are we talking about?
Here's the thing, Jim. I talked to him about it and said, look, you'll need a plan. I talked to him about possibly doing something in the bay on maybe a county lease. They've talked about sugar kelp or seaweed aquaculture as part of the oyster growing or the shellfish growing lease program. That's sort of in the exploratory stages now. So I kind of tried to, point him in lots of different directions. But, I did emphasize, if you want to come to us and ask us, to do this, you have to come with a plan and be pretty specific. And so we know exactly what you're going to do and, from soup to nuts, from beginning to end. Is this going to be commercial? Is this not going to be commercial? What are you going to do with the material? All that kind of thing. So he's kind of looking into that, and I'm assuming he will come back at some point with some kind of a plan, and we can continue to discuss this with him. But I thought I wanted to run it by the board because it's this is a private endeavor in trustee waters. It's a little like John Nicholas and Sunset Cove Marina, except that John Nicholas has an existing use that he's converting. This would be a brand new thing. And, I also spoke to Barley about it, and, he spoke to Chuck as well. And, you know, it's clearly it's our decision. He, you know, he didn't have any great reservations about it. He felt that, and I feel as though possibly that if this were to move forward, the hatchery and this private individual could sort of work together to a degree on it, because part of Barley's grant to the CPF funds is to develop techniques in the hatchery to start off the kelp, to develop the seed stocks of the kelp for transplant out into a field grow out situation.
So, hey, John, is there some commercial value to sugar kelp?
Well, you know, sugar kelp is, in my opinion, it's the new hot save the planet kind of concept. There is some commercial value to it. I think, you know, somebody from Connecticut, a guy named Brand Smith, has been pushing this for a long time to sort of as part of a polyculture. You can grow shellfish, you can grow kelp, you can have a summer crop, a winter crop, trying to develop markets for it, things like that. But I think one significant opportunity that I think large scale people are looking for of growing this stuff out in, you know, open waters might be some kind of a carbon transfer arrangement where there's value in extracting nitrogen from the water and selling that to
So somebody's doing a banking program on this. Some commercial.
Well, I think that's part of it, part of the thinking in terms of, you know, when there's a large scale operation is being desired.
One of the things I like about the sugar kelp growing project is that it's also now considered to be an organic fertilizer, and that gardens will be able to use it. I think Barley did discuss that when he met with us. Where is his project going? I had a feeling he was supposed to be back here this evening.
No,
a more in-depth presentation. Sorry, Bill?
We've approved it, Susan. We've supported it.
Right.
And it's gone to the CPF.
Yes.
PAC.
Right.
It doesn't need to be reviewed because, like our pump out boat, it's already in the law, in the CPF, whatever it is.
Yes.
To be directly funded without necessarily having to go before the review committee.
All right. I just remember Jim asking for him to return with a more a larger presentation, so that's all. But his presentation had information I thought was very beneficial to the environment about kelp being a great, a new organic fertilizer for gardens, landscaping, and so forth. So that aspect of it I thought was really wonderful. And yes, it is before the CPF, water quality.
Yeah, I think Barley was going to talk to Steve Lynch about introducing it into the town composting program mix. So anyway, it's just an FYI, yeah. No vote, no decisions.
Okay.
To be continued.
Francis, you're off. You need to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Next, we have the Sag Harbor Water Quality Initiative.
Yes,
Who's gonna take
Francis,
that on?
Dr. Gobler did a great job presenting on the Sag Harbor Water Quality Program that's been going now for a few years. The trustees have been key players in that. The focuses were the Havens Beach Green, the boat basin and sewage treatment plant, the coves, and we even saw that a few samples were taken from Little Northwest Creek. I don't think there were any major surprises. The sewage treatment plant did come out looking pretty good with, I think, better than expected reporting on handling of nitrogen. and bacteria. But there are still some pretty bad spikes taking place around Havens Beach and inside the boat basin. His DNA analysis wasn't completely conclusive, so he really couldn't say exact sources in certain areas, like the basin is still a little bit of a question mark, which I was somewhat disappointed by. And the Havens Beach situation, a little Northwest Creek, has residents to the east end of Sag Harbor Village concerned. They were hoping that we might be able to provide some signs for Little Northwest Creek when we did have rain events or temperature events in the summer, so that some of the neighborhood leaders might be able to put some signs along the creek so the kids don't play in the creek mouth when there's bacteria spikes. So it's great that so much progress has been made, but unfortunately, there's still some work to be done, I think, before final mitigation planning and work takes place. They do have some projects with CPF in play for rain gardens, and a very close look is being taken place at possibly expanding the sewage treatment plant to take hookups from septic systems that are currently sitting in groundwater in certain low-lying areas. Really challenged area. You know, the whole area was a wetland at one point, so it's the drainage of 114 and the Bridgehampton Sag Harbor Turnpike. So it's a difficult spot. But we you know, not unlike our program, we now have some pretty solid data to work with. And, you know, I think we'll have a growing interest in the Little Northwest Creek area going forward. So those were my takeaways. I know there were some other members there. Thank you.
Through when I was arranging with Chris Gobler to attend our later meeting, he asked that I send out the link to this particular meeting, which would sort of open the door for us with our own water sampling of 2020. So through the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, I did that. And John was there, Jim was there, myself, and Rick, all four of us. So I learned quite a bit. And to the question of there was a woman at the end who asked about, I believe she's a resident in Nineveh, Sag Harbor, and she asked about putting up the signs, or how can we know which water is swimmable for our family members and friends. And so I just mentioned, which I'll talk about later, the website. We are going to have a link now to Suffolk County governmental. It's through the Suffolk County Ecology Department. And I spoke today to Nancy Pearson's office and Mike Jensen, and I'm going to be posting that link, as well as the link for title information for people. So there will be a link, and you can actually go to your specific beach that you're interested in and see what the water quality is at for that date. So I think that'll be something, as Tim suggested, you want information for the people who are looking at the website to be user-friendly, find out information. So we're adding those things in that way. But it was very interesting. And I know John, you have things to say as well, no doubt, about the Sag Harbor water.
Well, I just had a question, kind of. Rick gave a pretty good overview of I've heard pretty much the same things there. I did notice at the end of the meeting that one of the residents in the Little Northwest Creek area, I'm pretty sure she was, mentioned the quote unquote private beaches to the south. And I interpreted that as meaning that that those communities feel as though, and I think we've talked about this before, those beaches are private. And I'm just curious. I know that was one of the reasons, or I believe it was one of the reasons we wanted Steve Borner and Rick Whalen to look into that area. And it's not directly related to water quality, but it just, it struck me.
John, that area is being dissected with a magnifying glass as we speak. And the volume of information that Steve has on the deeds and the transactions is impressive. So he's very close to memorializing the full background on that area from original allotments to present day. And that's something I asked him to try to present to the board. So just from Havens to Little Northwest Creek, and then from Little Northwest Creek to Northwest Creek. So that's going to be an interim report forthcoming from Steve, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good one.
That's great, because the Sag Harbor Express seemed to not even dig into that concept. They just reported it as being a private beach. And
we were told when we started the work, when Rick and I went down there with Fred Thiel and Bridget Fleming 2 years ago, that property was the first thing it was described as. This is a private beach for these communities. Okay. The validity of that statement, as Rick stated, we really don't know. It could be private beach, but it may not be private beach. The only thing that's that we do know is we do own Little Northwest Creek. We've made a commitment to the community there to basically do the remediation, the dredging and stuff there, and we fully intend to live up to that. But I think what Rick said earlier, I'm also looking forward to what Steve Borner and Rick Whalen's take on the ownership issues there.
Yeah, Steve will compile the research and Rick will be doing the final review. So we may get an interim report, but anything that the trustees would take a position on will have legal review taking place.
Rick, about when will that report be coming in?
I would like to see it within 30 days.
Oh, good. Okay.
So for that section, then he's got to continue around the horn towards Cedar Point. But it's taken time, and I appreciate everyone's patience. And I've been frustrated at different points because it seems like we're getting to the end of the game, and then he's had another hurdle where he can't get access to records. But I think we're almost to the end of the tunnel. So I'll keep you posted. And I would like to see, if not the next meeting, but the meeting after, I'm going to push for an update.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Should be interesting.
Absolutely.
Anything else on that? Okay.
Oh, hey, Bill.
We'll move on.
I'm sorry, Francis, may I just revisit that briefly? Hey, Bill,
Sure.
You think Natural Resources would have the ability to make any signs for Fresh Pond and Little Northwest Creek regarding swimming advisories, or is that something we should do as a board internally?
I'm not sure what Natural Resources could do. We're probably better off talking to I think the Highway Department has a sign making shop. You should ask Steve Lynch if he could make signs. Closed water signs also probably available from the DEC.
Okay.
And
If that doesn't
Or
work-
Suffolk County, the Suffolk County link that I have today for the beach monitoring program.
you could ask them.
The thing is, there's a lot of public pushback about signs at the beach where it's just, everything is filled with signs. So if you put a permanent sign up, what would the sign be saying? It would be temporary, like we do at Georgica Pond?
Correct. That was the idea anyway. And that was, I believe, the spirit of the request from the community. And I was even thinking, give them some opportunity to maybe put out the signs and take them in if they feel that it's obtuse or something.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly after big water events, after temperature events, there's a high risk for bacteria. And
Right.
You
I think we have
a lot of
responsibility.
those things come on suddenly and they go away suddenly. So you have to be prepared to put the signs up and take them down and take responsibility for the accuracy.
That's why I like the link for the website. If people know about it, they can go to it daily and they will see from Suffolk County their particular beach that they're interested in. I think that is
That's
perhaps the most reliable.
Powerful tool, Susan, definitely.
You could also
explore the signs.
You could also just make a sort of an advisory sign that, be careful here, check with your health department for.
Check the website.
Yeah, check your trusty website.
Look at your phone.
Yeah.
Surfrider is putting up, is in the process of putting up little QR codes that will bring, you could basically put your phone up to the sign and it'll go directly to the water quality information. And that's something they're implementing in the next 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe 4 or 5 weeks.
So we could do that on our website, maybe, Tim.
Yep. I don't think they have specifics of it. There's been a little delay because there's some turnover on personnel, but I know it's something that's in the works.
Okay, well, I will get in touch with our website designer and see if we can implement that as well.
I'll call the highway department and see what kind of signage capabilities they have, and if they can do a QR code, and see where we go from there.
If that doesn't work, we made some signs up last year for crabbing in Georgia Pond and had them done by Staples. They're not that expensive.
Okay, that'll be our plan B.
$25 a pop for an aluminum sign.
Right, plan B.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
All righty.
Okay. Consideration of town draft code change regarding the fueling of boats from docks at 3 Mile Harbor. I don't recall seeing that draft. Has anyone else?
No.
I have seen it, and I think a lot of good work went into it. The one concern that caught my attention was having safety gear accessible to deploy when you have an incident. And one of the main areas that fueling takes place is on the 3 Mile Harbor commercial dock, which has a roaring current and often a roaring southwest wind during the peak of boating season. And I just don't think it's feasible to deploy any type of remediation or safety gear from that particular location. And it just seemed like a very general statement in that specific regard. You know, if it was another location where you had very light current and you could actually deploy safety gear, I think a lot of the language and what was put forth into that document was very good. But it fell short of addressing the realities of a main fueling depot that's being done from land-based fueling in 3 Mile Harbor. It's mostly for larger vessels in that location, and they can't be serviced at local marinas because there's not enough water depth. So from a water depth and access perspective, it's unique and it's a great spot. And that's why a lot of vessels like to shoot in out of Gardiner's Bay and hit the commercial dock, get fueled up from a truck and go. And it makes great sense and it helps local businesses. But I think there's a big void in the safety plan for that location because of the proximity to the channel and the current. And we saw an incident last year that wasn't a direct result of the fueling, but the vessel was preparing and transferring fuel from one tank to another in preparation to accept fuel from the truck. And that ended up around the corner by the hatchery. And then the hatchery participants were told that their cages may be tainted and don't take any of the shellfish for a period of time. And it just left me with the concern that we really can't manage that location right now without some form of advanced safety gear, which I don't think exists.
Yeah, you could tell a lot of work went into the document, but I don't know if there is any kind of gear you could put it at the commercial dock that would, you know, the current is just too fast.
I don't believe there's another location in the harbor, though, is there?
I don't believe there is at this time, John. There's nowhere that you have public access, a public dock that has the depth. I mean, there is the dock by the boat ramp. I mean, the channel is 11 feet mean low water all the way back past the Dolphin, all the way to Gardiner's Marina, the town docks, and the town dock by the boat ramp. I just don't know if there's enough linear footage and beam capacity to put a 80, 90-foot vessel in the boatyard lane horseshoe area for fueling. But that's an area that you could mitigate. If you had a spill there, you could deploy a boom, you could contain it, you could clean it up. You don't have current, you don't have wind. But I just don't know if you have the physical capacity there. You have the parking, you have a public parking lot, but the boat ramp dock there is really more for skiff boats and some safety boats that are tied up there. So that's the closest thing I think you've got.
I believe the legislation calls for prohibiting fueling at a town-owned recreational dock. And I think that dock at the head of the harbor would be considered recreational, not commercial.
Could be. Well, there's commercial boats tied up there all winter. A commercial dragger was tied up there all winter. The New York State DEC boat was tied up there all season last year. And Ceto is also tied up there. So there are 3 forms of what I would call commercial use taking place at that pier.
Well, I guess I'm not sure who's making the definitions, but that would certainly be input, I suppose, that should be presented to the town.
It looked like the law was written to prohibit fueling at the head of the harbor.
Well, just for some background and time frame here, I mean, this was discussed by the town board at their meeting last Thursday. Just a little bit like we're doing here, just introduced, and David Brown and Ed Michaels gave a little bit of a, explanation of what was in it. It's mainly just permitting the trucks and requiring safety and cleanup gear, things like that. I hear you, Rick. I don't disagree with you at all about the uselessness of probably trying to do anything with a spill at the commercial dock when the tide is running. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But the idea of introducing the language now is to have the boards take a look at it in advance of a public hearing, which it sounds like they will be trying to set up sometime in April. So I don't know.
That's good. Public comment on this, I think, is important.
I mean, I don't know what the approach should be from our board. If we have input, maybe we should present it as in a memo to the town board or David Lease or something.
I'm fine with us participating like that. I just feel to some degree, though, like we're the owners of the bottomland. We're responsible for the waters as defined in the patent. It's very, very clear that we have an extremely important role on this. And I just don't want to see us defer our rights and the rights of our community, so to speak, to protect the environment. And we just have had lengthy conversations on shellfishing on several topics. And I just feel like this location is one that really needs a further look without getting into the weeds right now.
Yeah. Well, the weeds have to be gotten into at some point, I think. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, we own the harbor, right? So it's our bottom, we have responsibilities for the waters. But short of us trying to say we don't want this to happen, I think that the town and the harbor masters and the fire marshals are constrained by the laws on the books. And that's what I think this legislation is trying to address. They own the dock. They have to comply with the laws.
Yeah, but hey guys, I've listened to this, and we went through this the last meeting, and not for nothing. If this is a lousy spot to do fueling,
well, what are we going to do about it?
Well, hang on. Why is the town of East Hampton taking on that liability to allow that activity to occur on this particular property? Okay, because if this were a private property that somebody was trying to do the exact same activity on, I'm sure our local government would be stepping into that and regulating it accordingly.
Well, this legislation addresses private fueling docks as well.
Okay.
And, you know, there are private fuel, I think there's private fueling docks in the lake that are under similar constraints.
John, maybe there's an opportunity to introduce a new bullet point or chapter heading into the legislation that does consider the conditions of the waters for a particular fueling site. You know, I would think that there just may be a small gap right now where we're not speaking to the issue at hand. And we're talking a great deal about what's going on upland and what safety gear, you know, can be used and where it can be positioned. But if the conditions prevent you from deploying the gear, not unlike a unfavorable weather report, you know, discouraging you from using your boat because you're going to sink, it's so rough. You know, maybe there's an opportunity for us to introduce a new line of thinking here.
I did have a discussion along those lines when we met. David Lee set up a meeting with Fire Marshal Ed Michaels. I was at it.
Yeah, I remember you were the representative.
I did kind of, you know, say, well, what about, you know, restricting fueling to slack tide, that kind of thing, and that didn't go over.
Okay, well, sometimes you have to hit the line more than once, but I hear you. It sounds like, you know, the upland, you know, group is a little more in favor perhaps of this location. It is a legacy, but it's,
well, I think it's
not a great
location. There's
no, I understand that, but Sag Harbor had one location at the Long Wharf, and they have discouraged it because they had problems, and they've kind of kicked the can over to East Hampton. And when they did that, there was a dramatic increase in the number of vessels stopping into 3 Mile, particularly in the fall on the way out of town. And it was like a conveyor belt of mega yachts coming down the channel and tying up and fueling. And there is no safety gear along that bulkhead right now. There's nothing to deploy. And I don't see anywhere on the trucks right now where they have room for a boom. So I don't really know, you know, what's taking place. And it just looks like right now it's just, you know, kind of a free-for-all.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There was gear there. The harbor masters had it. I think it came from a private fueler who had purchased it when he had the exclusive, you know, fueling rights, and then lost them and left the gear with the harbor masters. You remember that they tried to deploy some of it and use some of the pads. Didn't do anything. It is there. You know, the new law will require it to be on the dock and on the truck as well. But
okay. Well, there's incremental improvement, which is good. But you know, like I said, hopefully there's more to the discussion, and I would like to see us weigh in if we can a little bit further.
Yeah, the proximity to the hatchery grow-out place is a huge issue.
Well,
the tide runs.
I share everybody's concerns. I'm just, you know, I'm not sure how we should address it.
Have they looked into, you know, any improvements in the gear they could deploy? You know, once you get a couple mile an hour current, booms aren't effective at all. The type they're using aren't anyhow.
You know, the only thing I can think of is like on a purse seine fishing boat where you have a boom in the air off a mast that could be secured to the bulkhead, and you can swing it out around. You'd need some tackle, Bill. You know, you'd have to get some tackle going. I don't know if there's the will to do that, but that might be a way where you could actually deploy some gear into the current.
You know, the training for the people doing the fueling, I mean.
Well, I think the problem with any boom, regardless of how fast you can deploy it, is that it's, you know, diesel fuel is just going to find its way right past it. It's really, you know,
brutal.
It's kind of made for heavy oil, is my understanding.
It's a brutal product. It's a brutal product.
But
Well, I think getting everyone's comment, John, I mean, you were the original representative. Could we use you as a conduit to forward our comments? I know I sent you some last time, and then maybe you could use some backup if you do get into a, face-to-face meeting opportunity or a Zoom meeting, that maybe some other members could back you up a little bit.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would appreciate it because, the ideas are coming from you guys. I mean, if you want, I can try to put it together in some kind of a document. And I think maybe it could be floated out to, the town prior to the public hearing, and then maybe presented at the public hearing. But I don't, that's the only thing I can think of.
No, I think it's a good step forward. Let's take that step and see where we go. And I'll try to help you if I can, but I'll certainly submit what I think is a reasonable option or considerations.
Well, I'll need input.
Absolutely. We'll get it together. We'll get it to you.
Okay.
Thanks for working on it.
Done with that?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
Chris.
but you were muted before, Chris.
Oh, you know what? My earphones were just a little bit unplugged. I've been trying to talk for about 10 minutes. I'm like, wow, these guys are really.
That's probably a good thing after 5 minutes of being muted.
Yeah, you're just seeing the mouths going, but no sound. Is that it?
John and Rick were just fully talking over me there. Okay. Well, so yeah, real quick, guys. I think Rick, just listening to your concerns there, if you take a look at that third page of this thing, and John mentioned as well, the section about the fuel trucks and what the restrictions and requirements are, is really, there's an opportunity to expand on that. Sections 1 and 2 there, the premises shall be approved by the town marine and fire code officials prior to the commencement of any fueling. And then the premises shall be provided with an approved spill response kit meeting minimum requirements established by the fire marshal. So those two sections there are really pretty kind of rudimentary, just a real gray area on what that means and what that's going to entail. So I think if you guys could focus on that a little bit and really elaborate on some of those things, on what a spill kit would be adequate, I think there's room there to really provide some meaningful edits to this thing.
Great, thanks, Chris. Hey, John, do you have, that draft just went around recently, correct?
Yeah, I thought I sent it, but I'm not sure I did.
I don't think I got it.
I got a copy of it.
I'll send it.
Send it around again,
I'll send
please.
it to everybody.
Send it around again, please.
And John, I'm happy to work with you on this a little bit as well. I see
Hey, I
some,
was just going to suggest that, Chris.
I figured. I see some areas to improve on this as well. I just think right off the bat, you look at this whole section devoted to fuel trucks, and the first thing they say is the premises shall be approved. It's like, it's a little, there's a few things we can do there to tighten this
What's
up.
the criteria of approving the facility?
The criteria just says that the premises shall be approved by the town marine and fire code officials prior to commencement. There is no criteria.
And what does that do to the pre-existing fueling facilities that we have in town? Are they grandfathered in? I'm sure this has to apply to them as well, correct?
This is strictly for the fuel trucks. So yeah, I think I would think so. But it's a little gray, and even the language, we're not exactly sure what's identified as a recreational and a commercial dock either. So we can clarify that too. So yeah, there's some, I think we could definitely offer up some really good information here and hopefully clean this up a little bit and provide some valuable input.
Would it help to have like maybe a committee meeting in the next week or so, John? Maybe you, I, and Chris, and if someone else wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it might be easier that way.
All right. Do you want to send around a meeting request? Any day at 5 o'clock is good for me, or Saturday.
All right.
And I could
John,
probably do, sometime during the day. If you couldn't do it at 5, I would try and make some other time.
I'll be available.
Okay. Thank you.
John, I'm not so sure that this addresses private docks either. I continue to see language that's addressed to a commercial dock, town recreational, town commercial. I'm not so sure that maybe we can read it together, but I'm not seeing anything addressing private docks either. Anyway, we'll take it to committee.
All right.
We'll look for a meeting notice, John.
Okay.
Thanks for taking that on, guys. Move on to education, the 2021 Captain William J. Rice Scholarship Fund. Susan?
Okay, 1 minute, here we go. April 9th, I will pick up the applications from the high school, East Hampton High School, for those students who have applied to the trustees for scholarship fund, and that's it. How's that for short? I'll deliver them to the office, and I will let you all know that they are there. And everybody knows by now, but I'll reiterate. You come in, you read the applications, and they're anonymous, so there's no name attached to it. And you vote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however many we get, and then we tally everything up, and I take them back to the school. So that's it for now. So May 9th,
Okay.
I will have them picked up and brought to the office.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Lazy Point Napeag, request from Ivan Silich, 50% leaseholder of 148 Shore Road, Lot 39N, in Lazy Point, to transfer his 50% ownership of the lease that he shares with his daughter, Katharina Bonds, to his son, Andriha Silich. Andriha has submitted his paperwork verifying he is a resident of town of East Hampton. Anybody have a chance to look at this?
If not,
Now, I think Arlene sent us an email just before the meeting with a little more information, but I've.
Okay.
Chris, have you looked at it?
For review.
No, I have not.
The table?
Table for review. All right, Northwest Creek, request from Terry Singer, owner of 58 Hedges Bank Drive, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-035-01-1.18 to renew trustee permit number 20, T20, for bluff restoration with the same terms and conditions of the original permit.
Yeah, this is renewal of an existing permit. This is right next door to number 60, which we approved a similar renewal permit meeting ago or 2 meetings ago. I think these jobs are planned on being done together by First Coastal. She has a 5-year DEC permit on this, and she has a 5-year NRSP administrative permit for this work as well. So unless there's any questions, I'll make a motion that we grant this renewal.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We'll grant the renewal. Pump out vote. We have a committee update.
Yes, everybody probably noticed. I think we had the new pump out boat for our last meeting. The second pump out boat is in the process of being built now. We should have that for the beginning of July. The one thing though that has come up, and I see it shows up in the purchases, is the pump on the old boat, the one that we're keeping, is tired, similar to the situation we had last year on our other 2 boats. What we would like to do is actually, rather than just rebuild that pump, take that pump off the boat, have it rebuilt, but replace it with a new pump, so that we go into this coming season with 3 fully functioning boats, pumps, hoses, fittings. That was one of the issues in the past. And that way the rebuilt pump will be a backup unit. When we took delivery on that new boat a couple of weeks ago, Briggs and I looked at sort of our inventory of backup equipment, and it's crap. Okay, plain and simple. The stuff is all rusted out. It's all rotted out. And other than perhaps taking a few fittings or parts off of them, I think it's time to throw some of this stuff away, have it take up less space in our storage area, and let's go into this coming season more prepared to do the job.
That sounds good.
The cost on that, and there's a little discrepancy here. I'm not sure where that comes from. We've got a recent estimate from the boat builder for the replacement pump to the tune of, what the hell, I just had it here. To the tune of $44.69, but yet in our purchases, we're asking for a $58.50. I'm assuming our
It's a
lien.
mistake. It's a mistake, Jim Grimes. The correct invoice you just
Okay,
read.
I didn't know whether
No, it was a mistake.
Okay, I didn't know whether there was some discussion about buying some additional hoses or that. Okay, so basically what we're asking here is for this board to approve a $4,469 purchase for a new pump for our existing pump boat.
Yeah, by all accounts, it looks like it's going to be a record boating season in terms of use. Boat sales are through the roof, so we're going to be busy. I'd make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Second.
Oh, everybody
All in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Well, thank you.
All
Anyone
right,
opposed?
so Rick, you made the motion and who seconded it? We had about 4 seconds.
Bill got there
Anybody?
first.
I think Bill.
Bill? Okay. Rick and Bill. All righty.
Thank you.
Aye. Should we
All right.
should we be looking into purchasing some spare equipment at this time?
Well, Bill, last year we had a little crisis.
Yeah, I mean, trying to find if we have a couple.
No, and you know what we did do last year is we did stock up on some additional hoses. I don't know that we really need to purchase anything right now, but between now and when we take delivery on the new boat, we may look at it. Keep in mind, we bought a bunch of new hoses last year for our boats. We got rid of a boat, okay, and we have 2 brand new boats that came fully stocked with hoses. So I think we're pretty good.
You know, guys, if I recall correctly, last year our biggest problem was finding a mechanic to do the work. Is there any way we can line somebody up?
Yeah, one of the guys that works at the hatchery, Jason, he does all the work on their on the Yamaha outboards.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what about pumps?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think we're buying 2 new boats, and what we are not doing is we're not taking these engines to anybody that's not a registered dealer and service facility on this stuff. As far as getting work done,
Yamaha certified service is the way to go.
yeah. Listen,
There are a couple of providers in East Hampton.
Yeah, we've got, I think your marina's a provider. We have a marina in Montauk that's a provider. I think
we're covered.
Yeah, I think we're covered, Bill. And you know what did happen last year is I'm going to describe it as some of the less attractive jobs that we had to be done on these boats. I really want to commend some of our staff. Briggs Inc. was great about basically crawling down and dealing with yeah.
Right.
So
he's a good guy. He's a good guy to have on the team.
Yeah, listen, I think we're in good shape to cover it, but thanks, Bill.
I have something I'd like to add to this conversation about the pump out boats before we close it out and go to the next topic. The Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee met and voted and then is sending it along to the town board for the request for funding from the CPS fund for the new boat. So they will be presenting that on April 6th. So I'll have more news and update for you on our application for the funding to help us get a new boat.
Can we put this pump in for a grant for that?
Jim?
I don't know. How many times do we want to dip into this well?
Every time we spend money. I mean, that's what the CPF It's right in the law.
Listen,
Well, it's very important.
we can,
I don't know if it should be used for doing maintenance work, to be
Yeah.
honest.
It's a purchase of a pump, though.
yes.
We can apply to the state for maybe
Listen,
a 75% grant on that.
Do
Okay.
we want to set a threshold for such requests? You know, whether it's 5,000 or 2,000 or whatever it may be?
I don't know. I just thought 4,400's decent amount of money.
yeah, yeah. Hey, Arlene, how did we handle the purchase last year? We purchased a pump last year and some hoses. How did
We only recently found out that we could possibly make put in applications like for something like a pump, or maybe the engine when we bought the Evinrude. We hadn't been sure of that. So let me just check, and I'll let you get back to the
Yeah, listen.
next
One way,
meeting. From the state, it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
one
sorry.
way or the other, we need this. If there's the opportunity for reimbursement, with some other municipal funds, heck, let's go ahead and apply for it.
I agree.
Okay, anything else? All right, move on to records, update the new website.
All right, I spoke to the issue of adding some user-friendly public links for people to go to, so I'm not going to go through that again, other than just to say we will have a beach monitoring program link for people to, under the page alerts. We're creating a page that's just about things that people need to find out about the environment, what, you know, with regard to swimming conditions, tides coming in and out. I have a link for that I've asked Michael to put up. I've been working on this with Michael every day, so I'm really excited about it. We hope to debut it I would hope by the next meeting, it'll be ready to go, if not sooner. I am waiting for a few last details. You know who you are, but for everybody that has submitted, great job. I really want to especially thank John for his terrific write-ups about committees. Each committee will have its own description, and I think we're just -1 at the moment. So I have pictures from, I want to thank Sarah Davison for today giving us some summer pictures of Georgica Pond, which I asked her for. And certainly when the weather is nicer, I will take some to add. But we're making this much more visual, much more accessible for the public to use. And I think that's a very important part of our website. And I think you're going to be very pleased with how it looks. We've been seeing some of the pages come through. Arlene and Allison have been terrific working with me on this with Michael Hansen. So I want to thank you on camera right now and let you know how much I appreciate all your work and effort that you've been putting into this. Hopefully next time we can debut it, and I will ask Michael if he would like to walk us through it and be a guest at that next meeting to see. So very exciting. Also, I just want to add one other thing. We had a request for TEDs. We have given them away. They're free. Those are the turtle excluder devices from John Turner of CTUC. So he just let me know today that he has received new ones, and we will be getting, I think, about 250 of them. And I have been posting them on social media. If anybody in the commercial fishing business, it's mandated by the state of New York that you have this device. So we have them for free in our office. Just give us a call and we'll make sure it's put in the vestibule for you. I think we have right now a request for 50 of them, Arlene. Is that right? Well, that's what she had told me. So, and anyway, Rick, you're muted. Rick, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say we have some available at the marina. They're free of charge, and I have them at the ship store. If anyone needs them up on 3 Mile, please stop by the Gann Road Harbor Marina store, and you can get your turtle excluder.
Okay. Did you get them from CTUC as well, John Turner?
I think I got them from you.
Oh, good. Oh, okay.
You left from last year.
Okay, good. All right.
And I can get some more.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for taking them. I appreciate it. All right. And that's all that I have to say right now. about the website, which also will have turtle information with a poster from CTUC and the availability of the TEDs. Does anybody else have anything that they think should be on the website under alerts? Any other links that we should be giving to the public that you feel is important that the public would like to know about?
Weather and tide was talked about for the last website, but we didn't get it in place. So there isn't actually a tide report I'm aware of.
Oh no, I have a tide link.
But hear me out. There's between Shinnecock and Montauk, there's no real high tide, low tide report that I'm aware of. So if we could extrapolate the tide of Shinnecock, we could give like an Atlantic Beach report behind the trustee office, which would be kind of unique to have the actual East Hampton Ocean Beach tide reported on our site. And you can do that with some simple math.
Okay. The link that I found today, I believe it's for East End only. So I'll take a closer look at it. And once it gets up, once we actually debut the website, I'm sure we'll all have something that we want to say about it, to add or take away or change. But I really want to get it up and running because every month that goes by, it's not there on the web. So,
Susan,
yeah.
The lifeguards post the tides in the summer on the stands. They might have some kind of a link that they.
Well, I looked up the lifeguards, and really right now there's nothing new on the site. So I'm going to keep after it because I think that that's an important thing to. I just don't know. I don't want to cross over into someone else's territory either, and have lifeguarding. What do you think, Francis?
No, I'm just saying, Susan, that they might have the tides.
Yeah, they may be extrapolating them off Shinnecock.
Well, again, I have a link for the tides, and I'm happy to share it with you if you want to see it and think if it's adequate before it goes up. I went through several. There were several different links that offered East End or Long Island, North Shore, South Shore. So if you'd like, I'll send you what I was going to use.
Well, no, I think what Rick was saying is there's nothing really for the ocean tides. I think there's plenty for the bay tides, but not the ocean tides. But somehow the lifeguards seem to know what the tides are.
Yeah, it's about an hour after Shinnecock, but we could do a little more accurate forecast and post it. It'd be pretty easy.
Well, considering that their headquarters is right downstairs from our office, we might be able to work something out.
We could ask John Ryan what they use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will reach out and look into it and see what other link I can come up with that's more helpful. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you. All right, move on to administrative payment of the bills. We have Staples for $124.29 and Optimum $152.28. Do I have a
Make
motion?
a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we have minutes from December 14th. Anybody have a chance to look at them?
I did. I sent them in to Allison with minor suggestions.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And under report of the clerks, earlier we sent around a resolution to cover Allison, who's been neglected on the traditional stipend that the trustees have given secretaries. So I'd like to read that off if you don't mind. Whereas the office business of the East Hampton Town Trustees is generally conducted by a secretary, and whereas Allison Felenius is now secretary and already employed by the town of East Hampton Trustees to conduct the office duties of the trustees, be it further resolved, the clerk is hereby authorized to employ Allison Felenius as secretary to the East Hampton Town Trustees for the year 2021. And therefore, be it resolved, Allison Felenius will continue as secretary of the East Hampton Town Trustees for the year 2021. In addition to her salary of trustee employee, she will receive a stipend of $100 per week from trustee funds. Do I have a motion?
I make
Make a
a motion
motion.
to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Anybody have anything else?
I got one thing. As some of you may know, the drain down at Fresh Pond closed up. We had a good heave on a week or so ago, and the drain has done what it's done so many times before. There is an opportunity before the piping plover window to get that cleaned up. I would like permission from this board to actually hire Pat Bistrian to get down there and do that work.
I'll make a motion to do that work.
For second,
Second.
all in favor?
Thank
Aye.
you.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Nice to see
Motion
everybody.
to close?
Good night, everyone.
Yep.
Motion to close.
Have a good week.
Is there a second to close?
Oh, me, yes,
Second.
okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I will do it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
good night.
Good night.
Good night.